Welcome to The Upload. I'm USTelecom CEO Jonathan Spalter. At our recent USTelecom Broadband Investment Forum, Congressman Frank Pallone, who was just reelected as chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, sat down with Verizon's Senior Vice President of Public Policy and Government Affairs and our Board of Directors Vice Chair, Kathy Grillo, for a fiberside chat about how to promote universal connectivity and affordable broadband access for all in America. It was a great conversation. Take a listen.
COVID-19 has clearly demonstrated how vital broadband is to everyday life. And our companies, Verizon and the other USTelecom members, have invested heavily in our networks, and they performed very well when put to the test. But we recognize that it's still really important to have government support for universal connectivity. So can you tell us, how has COVID-19 shaped your views about broadband and its importance in our society? And how do you see government and industry working together to address the gaps that still exist?
I think that it has really magnified and made us understand how essential broadband service is. But it also pointed out, which I think Jeff also mentioned, that it's put a spotlight on the digital divide and exposed the need for infrastructure investments because a lot of people don't have broadband service. So I think the way we can work together, I'm just going to identify three primary connectivity gaps that have to be addressed, both if we're going to get to universal broadband. And that's obviously working with all of you and working with the Congress, because the federal government is so crucial. The first is lack of access. Again, I don't think that the industry can bridge this gap alone. And, many parts of rural America and inner cities still don't have reliable broadband infrastructure. And so obviously the government needs to make those investments. Jeff talked about the 80 or $100 billion that we had in the Moving Forward Act, the infrastructure bill, part of which, that part of that infrastructure bill that the House passed came out of our committee. The second gap is affordability of service, right? In other words, it's very nice if you have access, but you can't afford it and your access gets cut off because you don't pay the bill. Now, of course, that hasn't happened for the most part during COVID crisis, because either you guys have voluntarily said we're not going to cut service, or we provided additional help. But we do need to do more at the federal level to subsidize for people who can't actually afford the service. And then the third thing is what I would call the gap in broadband adoption. And that's the challenge where, families don't have the devices necessary to access the internet, whether it's the computer or whatever it is. So those are the things we need to do. And I'll just go back to what I started with in answering your question, that really one of the top priorities of the Energy and Commerce Committee is the infrastructure bill. We called it the Lift America Act in our committee, but it became part of this consolidated bill called the Moving Forward Act, H.R. 2, and that invested more than $100 billion in broadband-related programs in underserved areas. That passed the House in July. The Senate hasn't acted on it, but I do believe that with the new administration, if you look at what President Biden has proposed, it's very similar. And hopefully we can get it passed in the new Congress.